Oh, you're here. Good. I was hoping for company. You see, I've got stories, dark ones, chilling ones, the kind that keep you up at night. Mythical creatures, curses, horrors you can't escape. Shall we begin? Don't worry, I won't bite. Much.
The night was thick with darkness, swallowing the small village whole. A few dim oil lamps flickered under the eaves, their light barely keeping the shadows at bay. Deep inside the village, there was a butcher named Jang, a man known for his madness. He was always saying strange things, doing even stranger things, and lately, he had become obsessed with a horrifying idea that a human and a wolf could conceive a child. People in the village thought he was insane. No one believed his ridiculous theory. But Jang was a man of action, and when he set his mind to something, he would stop at nothing. One night, he ventured deep into the mountains, setting up traps, and after days of waiting, he finally captured a she-wolf. He dragged her back to his home, locking her inside a damp, dark shed. That was where his horrifying experiment began. The wind howled through the village that night, rattling doors and windows as if nature itself was warning him. But Jang didn't care. His eyes gleamed with madness as he did the unspeakable. For 3 days, the shed was filled with desperate struggles, agonized howls, and muffled cries. The she-wolf fought fiercely, but there was nothing she could do against the monster who had trapped her. Months later, against all logic and reason, the she-wolf's belly began to swell. Jang was ecstatic. He ran through the village, shouting about his miracle, telling anyone who would listen that he had proven human and wolf could create life together. He was convinced he was going to change history. The villagers, however, were terrified. They whispered among themselves, calling him cursed, saying he had angered the gods. Some even discussed whether they should put an end to his madness before things got worse. But the she-wolf had no intention of staying captive. One stormy night, thunder roared across the sky, and the wind slammed against Zhang's house like an angry beast. Seizing the moment, the she-wolf broke free from her bindings, smashed through the weakened door, and vanished into the wilderness. The next morning, Jang was found dead. His corpse was horrific to look at. His entire body was blackened, his flesh rotting, his eyes bulging as if something had devoured him from the inside. His skin oozed a foul stench, so repulsive even flies refused to land on him. The villagers were convinced it was divine punishment. No one dared to touch his body. Eventually, the old hunter of the village burned Zhang's house to the ground, reducing both the man and his sins to ashes. But the story was far from over. The she-wolf ran deep into the mountains, her swollen belly making every step a struggle. She found a secluded cave, curled up on a bed of dry grass, and trembled violently as the pain overtook her. All night she suffered. Then, as the first light of dawn pierced through the cave's entrance, a weak, fragile cry echoed through the air. A human baby had been born from a wolf's womb. The infant looked no different from any other newborn. Pale skin, tiny hands, a weak body. But his eyes were different. They were deeper than a normal child's, dark and piercing, glinting like a predator lurking in the shadows. The she-wolf sniffed at the child hesitantly. Instinct told her that this was not one of her kind. He smelled like something unnatural, something that shouldn't exist. Yet, her motherly instincts overpowered her fear. She gently licked the baby clean, curled around him, and let him suckle her milk. But the forest was never silent for long. The scent of blood had traveled far, drawing the attention of an old hunter named Liam Carter. Liam was a seasoned hunter who had spent most of his life in the wilderness. He had seen many things, but when he stumbled upon the sight of a human baby nestled against a wolf, he was truly stunned. At first, he thought of killing the child. It was unnatural, a creature that shouldn't exist. But when the baby whimpered, clinging to the she-wolf's fur, something inside him hesitated. Maybe this is fate, he muttered to himself. He reached out, gently picking up the child. The she-wolf bared her fangs, her eyes filled with sorrow and rage. But she did not attack. She simply let out a low, painful whimper, watching as Liam walked away with her child. She turned and disappeared into the depths of the forest. From that day on, the wolf child was raised by humans, but the she-wolf never stopped watching him from the shadows. Liam named the child Ronan. Ronan grew up faster than normal children. By the time he was 3, he could catch rabbits with his bare hands. At 5, he could run through the forest with the speed and grace of a wild animal. But the most unsettling thing about him was his eyes. They glowed faintly at night. He could hear things no one else could. He could smell fear. The villagers feared him. They whispered behind Liam's back, calling Ronan a cursed child, a demon in human skin. Some even suggested throwing him off a cliff to rid the village of misfortune. But Liam refused to let them touch the boy. He had raised Ronan as his own son, and he wasn't going to abandon him now. However, Ronan's wolf instincts could not be tamed. One day when he was 10, he got into an argument with another village boy. The fight should have ended with punches and bruises, but Ronan didn't stop at that. He bit the boy's neck. Blood spurted everywhere. The villagers were horrified. That was the final straw. The villagers gathered, carrying torches and weapons. "He's not human," they shouted. "He'll bring disaster to us all." Even Liam, who had protected Ronan for years, knew that things had gone too far. Then, from the edge of the forest, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared. A she-wolf stood silently among the trees, watching. Ronan's heart pounded. He recognized those eyes. His mother had come for him. At that moment, Ronan realized something. He didn't belong here. The village would never accept him. He wasn't a human, not entirely. That night, the village burned. A pack of wolves descended upon the town, their fangs tearing through flesh, their claws slashing through screams. Blood dyed the soil, and in the midst of the chaos, Ronan stood silently, watching, feeling something inside him finally click into place. He belonged with them. Without looking back, he followed his mother into the darkness. The next morning, when the sun rose, the village was nothing but a wasteland of blood and ash. From that day on, people whispered the legend of the wolf child, and Ronan's story was just beginning. Ronan lived among the wolves for 5 years. He learned how to hunt, how to stalk prey, how to sense danger before it arrived. His body was stronger than an ordinary human's, his instincts sharper than any beast's. But no matter how much he tried to fit in, something always felt wrong. He wasn't like them. His skin was bare, his movements too calculated. He could understand the wolves, but they could never fully understand him. And the wolves could feel it too. The alpha, the leader of the pack, watched Ronan with wary eyes. The others grew uneasy around him, sensing something unnatural in his presence. The final sign came when they hunted together. Wolves killed swiftly, going for the throat, ending their prey's suffering as quickly as possible. But Ronan, he liked to make it last. He would chase his prey longer than necessary, break its legs with stones, watch as it struggled in agony before finally going for the kill. That wasn't how wolves hunted. That was something else. That night, the Alpha made a decision. As the moon rose high in the sky, the pack surrounded Ronan, forcing him to the edge of a cliff. The Alpha growled lowly, telling him, "Leave or die." Ronan didn't resist. He stared at them for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and leaped off the edge, disappearing into the abyss below. When Ronan awoke, he was lying in a shallow river at the base of the cliffs. His body ached, his skin torn and bruised. But he was alive. The wolves had abandoned him. For the first time, he felt truly alone. With nowhere else to go, he wandered until he came across a village, a place that looked like it had been empty for years. The houses were falling apart, vines crawled up the walls, and yet there were no bodies, no signs of struggle. It was as if the people had simply vanished. That night, he took shelter inside a broken-down house. The air was thick with dust, the wind howling through shattered windows. And then, the door creaked open. A little girl stood there. Her clothes were tattered, her skin pale, her eyes black as the void. Ronan froze. "Who are you?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she raised one hand and pointed toward the darkness beyond the village. Ronan followed her gaze. In the distance, shadowy figures stood at the edge of the trees. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing. But their mouths, they were open, whispering something too faint to hear. His blood turned cold. He spun back to the girl, but she was gone. Ronan tried to leave the village, but no matter which path he took, he always found himself back at the center. It was a trap. On the third night, he gave up fighting and approached the whispering figures. The closer he got, the clearer their faces became. Twisted, stretched, frozen in silent screams. Their eyes were hollow, their skin gray, covered in claw marks. And then he saw it. A well. The figures all pointed toward it. Ronan hesitated. Slowly, he stepped forward and peered down. The darkness at the bottom seemed endless. Then, he saw something move. A face. It wasn't his reflection. It wasn't even human. It grinned at him. Ronan stumbled backward, just as a wave of wailing cries filled the air. When he looked up, the figures were gone. The village was silent once more. He didn't know what had happened here, but he knew one thing. This place had been cursed long ago. At dawn, Ronan set fire to the well. The flames roared high, consuming whatever dark history had festered there. As the fire burned, the shadows faded. For the first time, the village felt empty, truly empty. He continued his journey. Eventually, he reached another village, one filled with life, people, voices. But humans had never been kind to him. The villagers eyed him with suspicion, whispering behind his back. He looked human enough, but there was something off about him. His sharp gaze, his silent movements, the way animals cowered in his presence. To survive, Ronan learned how to act human. He forced himself to smile. He copied their speech, their mannerisms. He hid his instincts, burying the wolf inside him. For a while, it worked. But then, the village began to change. First, the livestock started dying. Not killed by wolves, not by sickness, but something else. Their bodies were found half decayed, as if something had drained the life from them. Then, the well water turned black. The villagers who drank from it fell ill. Their skin darkened, their breath soured, Their minds rotted away. Panic spread. And then, one night, they found a body at the bottom of the well, a rotting corpse, and Ronan realized it was the man who had first taken him in. The villagers turned on him. "He brought this upon us. He's cursed!" They grabbed their torches, their pitchforks, surrounding him in the town square. Ronan laughed. He finally understood. It didn't matter where he went. Disaster would always follow. He didn't belong to the wolves. He didn't belong to humans. He was something in between. He closed his eyes, accepting his fate as the flames roared toward him. But then, a long, deep howl echoed through the night. A shadow leaped into the crowd. His mother. She was old now, weak. Her body was scarred, her leg limp, but she had come for him. The villagers screamed, running in terror as the beast tore through them. She stood over Ronan, her golden eyes filled not with rage, not with hatred, but with sorrow. She had tried to protect him. She had tried to keep him away from humanity, because she knew they would never accept him. Without another word, Ronan stood and followed her into the forest. He never looked back. Years passed. The village was abandoned, just like the cursed one before it. At night, travelers would hear strange sounds coming from the ruins. Not quite human, not quite beast. Some say it was the cry of a wolf. Others say it was a man, forever lost between two worlds. But one thing was certain. The wolf child still roamed the darkness,